Ido, you're muted, unfortunately. Yeah, this happens often in this conference.
So now everybody can hear me? All right. So, hi, good evening. The exhibition In and Out, Between and Beyond, Jewish Daily Life in Medieval Europe that will be open next week in the Max and Iris Stern Gallery in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem is one of the many products of the research group Beyond the Elite, led by Professor Elisheva Baumgarten. The exhibition seeks to provide the visual and material expression to an academic work of our team members. It strives to share the results of years of intensive research with the general public who visits Mount Scopus campus, whether students, scholars, and of course, the general public. Before we begin, I must tell you that the current exhibition does not claim to tell a full story, nor does it not seek to display a single current narrative. Instead, it offers a fascinating perspective of how Jews and their Christian neighbors live their lives in and around medieval cities. Reflecting its textual origins, the exhibition comprises of 16 units. At the heart of each unit stands a primary source from a particular literary genre. Those sources run the gamut from chronicles and commentaries to book of Jewish laws and customs, to poems, text records, and even magical formulas. We see this exhibition more like an anthology than a monograph. The curatorial challenge was a compelling one: how to present a polychromatic studies within a single unitary arc, how to translate historical research into today's uber diverse media. The curatorial process that took 2.5 years were accompanied by the ongoing work of the research group. Like many other projects conducted by our group, this exhibition too was a product of intensive teamwork. Each member contributed a theme, wrote an article, and provided the textual information for the display. It was not an ordinary academic task for most of us, since it required the transformation of historical research into other forms of media. Showcasing history in lectures and in academic publications is one thing, but displaying that same history within a showcase is definitely another task. The overall design of the exhibition was dictated by the space in which it is housed, known as the Little Gallery. You can see it here. At the heart of the Hebrew University. The gallery is, as you can see from this, from here, it's a rectangular space. Of about 90 square meters, built mostly of large glass walls. This transparent gallery is always visible to the many pedestrians passing through Mount Scopus campus on the way between the central library, which is, I guess, somewhere here at the end of the corridor, on the way between to the Meisdorf Faculty Club on this part here, behind the cafeteria. So it's really a packed place with many visitors. Standing at the entrance of the gallery, one can find this map. A map of Europe. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with Europe, right? And this map include the places specifically mentioned in the exhibition, in the historical sources, as well as in the articles reading on the historical sources. And as you may all see here, most urban centers in medieval Europe, similar to other places around the world, are located along banks of rivers and creeks. Sorry. The entrance to the gallery is made through an illustrated city gate designed to simulate an entrance into a medieval urban space. The gate is based on an illustrated title page included in the second volume of the Wormsmachzor, produced in Würzburg in 1272. The first volume was in 1272, and the second one was in the 1280s. And as you can see here, you also see my PDF, right, everybody? Okay, so as you can see, this is the Machzor Worms, and this gate in the exhibition is based on this gate. And actually, it is also the inspiration for the Beyond the Elite logo. As you can see on this side, you see this red structure here. It is based on the red part of the gate from the Wormsmachzor. So we really found we really like this this particular page from the Wormsmachzor. So the city gate alludes to the theme of the exhibition, which puts textual sources at its centers. When entering the gallery, one can imagine Jewish spaces of medieval Europe, an urban milieu that is conveyed to modern readers using written words, images, spectacles, and materials. Let's go into the gallery. Let me show you around a bit. You'll have to excuse me. This is the first time that I'm bringing visitors to the exhibition and explaining about our exhibition in this media, and also through the PDF in, let's say, at the same time. So this is the exhibition. I'm going to stand here and explain something. So, as mentioned before, placing 16 historical studies that are not necessarily linked to each other within the same thematic framework was one of the most significant curatorial challenges. Here, the overall design of the gallery became very handy, since the gallery is divided by 3 octagonal pillars. Let's see one here. This is the second one. And on the back of the gallery, you see the third one. We decided to address, you know, after getting this space, we decided to address to 3 guiding themes in the exhibition in order to have like a coherent design of the content and the space. So we chose 3 themes: in and out. This is one theme, and the second one is between. You can see it here, and the last one is beyond, which also I think we call the Beyond the Elite Research Group title. So the curatorial logic stems from a possible associative connection between sources and objects. Thus, we decided to place the historical sources along the long wall here. So I'll show you the long wall here. So all of the historical sources are actually concentrated on this wall. On the long wall of it is 21 meters long. And we decided to put all the other objects in the center of the gallery and on the other side of the gallery next to the glass windows, in order for people to also see them from the corridor. Visitors may begin by reading the historical sources here. Don't worry, I'll explain them in a while. So they can start by reading the Hebrew or the Latin or the German, and then continue by viewing the object on the left, such as here. Or they can do the opposite. We envision visitors making their own way among the offerings of the exhibition. The path of the exhibition is there to forge. Selecting spatially related guiding concept like in and out, between and beyond turned out to be most useful for us. Each of the three pillars became a kind of algorithm, that is a sort of formula to which one can insert each of the 16 themes in question, an action that necessarily result in a new perspective. Let's take, for example, Dr. Tzafrir Barzilai's research on urban water system. Here you can see the source, the illustrated source. So if you take urban water systems and put it in this algorithm, in this formula of in and out, one can speak, for example, about the physical aspects of wells and fountains, that is, drawing water out from a deep underground, from within the ground. But when inserting the same topic, this topic, within the second category, the between category, one can perhaps speak about social interaction between Jews and Christians when meeting on a daily basis to draw water from a shared water source. When placing the same source again, the same source that deals with urban water sources in the third algorithm, in the third formula, one can also relate to the wider cultural context of water. That is, their symbolic meanings, let's say in Judaism and Christianity, or well poisoning, and or whatever you want to explore beyond the literal aspects of urban water sources. Focusing on these three space-related categories enables us to avoid thematic categories that have dominated the Jewish Museum since the late 19th century. That is, two categories mainly: the Jewish life cycle and the Hebrew calendar. Notably, these traditional themes have the advantage of appearing to capture Jewish life from womb to tomb, as the popular expression goes. Such prisms do indeed shed light on selected members of the community, but leave, on the other hand, leave out many others. Importantly, too, the traditional preoccupation with peak experiences set aside the nitty-gritty of everyday life. I'll ask you this: is it really possible to portray Jewish history using only events such as marriage, birth, and death, or by using annual cycle that stretches from Shabbat to holiday? What about Jewish life during Sundays, for example? Let me go to this piece by Inbal Ochayon and play this audio segment that runs in the gallery every hour. We have a clock that's set for each hour.
We can't hear the bells.
You can't really hear the bells.
No,
oh, I'm sorry.
no. You should set, you know, that you should set the sound from your computer, I think.
Okay, so you'll have to believe me that there's a sound art that was made by Inbal Ochayon that eludes the fact that Jews lived in a Christian urban space, and I'll try to play it again later. Okay, so people in society is definitely part of the landscape in which they live. For medieval Ashkenazi Jews, the tangible physical homeland of Europe was embedded within a distinct Christian majority. In this space, Christian and Jews engage in complex relationship that involved, among other things, violence and trauma. The Crusades, which were primarily aimed at Muslims in the Holy Land, was also affected many Jewish communities throughout Europe. Other acts of violence towards Jews included blood libels, as well as host desecration and well poisoning accusation, and these accusations reached an apex in the 14th century, around the Black Death. Hatred and persecution were deeply rooted in the scholarly collective memory, and for some historians, this object became the backbone of their research. An alternative approach to put forward over the past decades has spotlighted the involvement of European Jews in their surrounding Christian environments, underlying ongoing relationship, partnership, and affinities. Both perspectives find strong support in historical accounts from the period. This exhibition strives to present this complexity. The viewer will encounter polemics and pain alongside many manifestations of daily coexistence. Such historical entanglements serve as the conceptual foundation of In and Out, Between and Beyond, where medieval Jewish and Christian histories are virtually entangled. As we can see next, visitors to the gallery are invited to engage with the exhibition throughout textual, visual, material, and acoustic means. The display includes two-dimensional and three-dimensional printed models inspired by medieval artifacts. These original works were all created especially for the exhibition by contemporary artists. Infographics, prints, animations, video mapping, sound art, and site-specific installations. The creation of the exhibition was an intensive collective effort. After meeting each of the historians, the artists were asked to provide their own artistic expression regarding the history in question. One of my main concerns as the curator was to mediate the historical sources to non-historians. While some sources were written in medieval Hebrew, as you can see, by the way, it is a foreign language to most contemporary scholars, secular Hebrew speakers. Other texts were written in Latin and German and French. Luckily, I knew Kalman Gavriel Dalmor. I knew his craft. Kalman is a calligraph and a Jewish scribe, a sofer stam. In his work titled Sources, you can see here, Kalman integrates into a single artwork the 16 historical sources discussed in the exhibition. This work is a 21-meter-long monumental mural in which Dalmor rewrites the sources using traditional tools and techniques. His work thus preserves the textual nature of the sources, but at the same time imparts new visual meaning to each one individually, as well as to all of them as a whole. Let us zoom in right now to several of these pieces on Kalman's wall, as well as to some of the objects and installation on display. Let's start with this one. You can see that this illustration is made out of a Hebrew verse. And this verse is taken from Sefer Or Zarua, written by Yitzhak, son of Moses from Vienna. And it goes like this. כן, קיבלתי ממורי, הרב רבנו שמחה זצ"ל, זכר צדיק לברכה, שכל בעלי תשובה צריכים תפילה. And you may ask yourself, why does the illustration look like this? Well, the illustration shed light on the unique architectural plan of the medieval Ashkenazi mikveh. one of our team members, Dr. Netta Botner, based her article on this particular source. And if we look back on the other side of the exhibition and go here, you'll see the piece that deals with the mikvaot. And I'm going to move through glass for a minute in order to show it to you also from the outer part of the gallery. This scaled down installation was made by Rafaeli Dor Yashar, a Bezalel graduate industrial designer. The installation deals with monumental ritual baths that have been known in Germany and France since the 13th century. I'm sure that all of you know what a mikveh is. It is an underground structure that leads to a pool of groundwater, as you can see here. It was used for immersion and purification of both men and women. These Ashkenazi mikvot were quite deep. For example, the one found in Friedberg, that it is illustrated here, is built as a rectangular shaft of about 25 meters deep. Monumental mikveh appeared at the area of great European architecture achievements, namely when the Gothic style reached its peak. In the city of Friedberg, by the way, the church and the mikveh were built at around the same time, and were probably built by the same builders and craftsmen. Yet, unlike the church, which stands out, as you can see, you can imagine that this line here is ground level. So the church stands out in the landscape, in the cityscape, yet the mikveh is almost hidden beneath ground level. But you'll have to agree with me that it is also monumental. You can see here the 3D printing that we did to the mikveh. We can actually dig in. So as you can see, and you will probably get the link to the virtual exhibition, you can visit it by yourself. Each of the sources on the long wall correspond to objects in the exhibition. So the mikveh here correspond to the mikveh here, and the treasure here correspond to the treasure here, and the water sources here correspond to the piece that you will see here. Access to clean water for drinking. Let us now return once again to Tzafrir Barzilai source on urban water sources. And we're talking about this particular source and about this. Access to clean water for drinking, cooking, bathing was always been an essential everyday need. As Tzafrir will surely tell you, city dwellers in the high and late medieval Europe often obtained water from public wells and fountains, most of which were located in city squares and on central streets. Due to their importance in daily life, urban water sources became social meeting places, including between Jews and Christians. The animated fountain, Living Waters, located in parallel to the illustration on the wall, was created by Inbal Ochayon. Its construction is based on surviving medieval water sources, as well as on depictions of water sources taken from Hebrew and Latin illuminated manuscripts of the period. And I brought some examples here. You see some illustration taken from Agadat Yehuda and Agadat Nuremberg Shnia, from the second Nuremberg Agadah and from Haggadat Yehuda. Haggadat Yehuda is kept in the Israeli Museum, and Agadat Nuremberg is kept in a private collection in London, both at the same period of 15th century. And you can see illustrations of wells, and of course, city fountains. And we actually based our fountain here on these pieces. In contrast to these static illustrations, Ohayon's fountain operates with animated running water. Located at the heart of the exhibition space, it forms a virtual meeting space where visual and acoustic events can take place, as well as kind of city square where visitors may meet in the exhibition. And now I'm going to play the animations, and I really hope that you'll hear it. But before it will start, I'll try to adjust. It. Sorry, let's close it. Try once again. So please let me know if you can hear anything, and if not, I'll try to Daniela, please, do you have any idea how to operate it?
It's
press
not
play. You have to press play.
Yeah, I know, but can you hear it? Can you hear it?
Try, no, at the moment, no. But did you?
Now?
No.
Can you hear it? No. Okay, so
no, you have to set this
audio setting. Okay, never mind. So
no, it's not. It's from the Zoom, I think.
It's from the Zoom, yeah.
On the microphone. Wait, Nick has
Okay, so
but I think you have to set it in advance.
Okay, so you probably get the link and you can watch it for yourself, and you can also listen.
We can imagine.
Yeah, so you really, when you'll hear it, when you'll open the link, you'll hear the sound of running waters, and you'll hear the sound of horse crossing the streets and pedestrians, and you see and you can hear also birds and other sounds. Okay. The following piece here, maybe I'll stand here. The following piece was made by Tali Megidish of Studio Dov Abramson. It is called Geschäft. That is business in German. This installation is related not to one, but rather to several researchers who dealt with economic activities. So if I go here, you'll see everything. So Avia Doron, for example, is interested in commerce, which is one source that she brought to the exhibition. And this is the other source that deals with ponds. And Andreas Lehnertz is dealing with the Jewish oath that was often used in conducting business. And also, it also relates to Nurit Dermer, source that deals with tax lists from Paris. So this infographic it is located at the heart of the exhibition and not for for nothing. You know, the word between is in my eyes is one of the strongest words in the exhibition. It is relating to several sources. So the infographics, as you can see on the strings attached to the ceiling here, is presenting Jewish participants in the medieval European economy through the medium of, let's say, an economic game. And I would like to show you the game card that we actually created to this exhibition, probably for sale soon in our website. And this deck of cards is made of 42 different cards. So just a minute. The economic activity of Jews, of Ashkenazi Jews in the Middle Ages, most of whom lived in urban spaces, encompassed a wide range of professions. Among these, many Ashkenazi Jews, men and women alike, provided interest-bearing loans in exchange for pounds. Credit transactions were carried out throughout the city, on streets and markets, as well as within the private homes of Jews. A broad spectrum of Christian population among the businesses, partners, and customers of Jews, a broad spectrum of Christian population is represented: pheasants, artisans, guild members, merchants, clergy, and nobles. The card game developed by Tali Megadish of Dov Avramson Studio recalls tarot cards, which began to take shape in the 14th and 15th century. The deck itself echoes the complexity of the economic system and thus features players from all strata of society. First venues in which such transaction took place, and material objects that were used as goods and as pawns, like books and clothing and rings and also weapons. And you can all see here, let me just zoom in, you can see all parts of strata of society that Jews dealt with in business. Each card holds two images. In the exhibition, let me return to exhibition, each card, you probably won't see it, but let's take this card, for example. So one side shows a jewelry, a brooch, but if we will look at the other side, you'll see that it's pinned, but okay, so let's take the other one of the Jew here, and on the other side is sometimes another card, but you'll have to excuse me, the team that photographed this exhibition had to deal with spinning cards because it kept spinning. So you'll have to believe me that that each card holds two images, two participants, or a participant and an object, or in some cases an object and money. And as the previous work clearly suggests, Jewish life in medieval Europe was largely conducted within Christian kingdom. You can see the emperor here, and the king and the queen here. And if we look back on this piece here, you see that this illustration of a queen seated on a throne is based, as the previous work clearly suggests, Jewish life in medieval Europe was largely conducted within Christian kingdoms. This illustration here of a queen seated on its throne is based on illustration from the Moralized Bible produced in France, in Paris in 1230s. The illustration depicts the donors of the manuscripts, King Louis IX of France and his mother, Queen Blanche of Castilla. I'll show you this illustration, and you see that this image was the model and inspiration for this illustration. Both are represented within the proper insignia. The king is holding a scepter and a globe, and both are seated on elaborate thrones in royal dress and wearing Floron royal crowns here. Kalman, as you can see here, got this image, but he was not the only one getting this image. Our industrial designer got it too. His task was to create a three-dimensional crown based on this two-dimensional illustration. The model was then 3D printed using special polymers. And you can see the actual result here on the right. Go back to the exhibition, you'll see that it is here, down here. And I guess some of you may ask, why does the curator place this lovely crown on the floor? Well, I have a good answer for this. Floron crowns were used not only to describe actual queens and kings, but also other majestic figures. One figure was Ecclesia, the personification of the church. Portraying Ecclesia as a queen was often related to her Jewish counterpart, Synagoga. Both figures often presented as young and beautiful queens, and as befits queens, both wear royal floron crowns. In some representations, such as in the west portal of Freiburg Cathedral on the left, both Ecclesia and Synagoga wear a crown. Here you can see here that this is Synagoga. The synagogue and Judaism, it is wearing a crown. In others, such as the two sides of the double south transept portal in Strasbourg Cathedral here on the right, you see that Synagoga is crownless. A third version here, I think I would presume that most of you saw it, in Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Synagoga crown has fallen, and it is represented on here on the ground. Sorry. Here on the ground. You'll see it really on the west facade of the cathedral. And why is that? That's because Synagoga lost her sovereignty. She lost her. She lost the battle, and she's no longer a queen like Ecclesia. The use of royal insignia or of other social personal symbols appear also on a wide range of objects, such as tableware, jewelry, and also seals. Seal impression represent a phenomenon of both legal and economic significance, the signing of documents for the purpose of verifying person's identity. As you can see here on this illustration, this is sort of a representation of a signed document, and you can see the seals impressions here, a representation of them. This is how they used to sign documents. Many medieval Christians and Jews held such personal and familial seals. Jewish communities also had specific communal seals. Numerous seal impressions have been preserved to this day in city archives across Europe, reveal the identity of their owners, as well as some of the textual formulas and symbols popular in that era. While originally only few centimeters in diameters, the three 3D printed models on display have been significantly enlarged. All three represent different visual aspects of medieval seals. The first seal has a royal crown. You can see it here at its center. It is an extra, the first seal has a royal crown. It is an extraordinary symbol that it is meant to reflect the economic ties Jews had with individuals and institutes from different strata of European society, including nobility and royalty. The second seal in the middle exhibits three Jewish hats, Judenhüts, inside the shield, surrounded by a polygonal inscription that identified an individual by its first name and his father's name. So this one is Chotam HaYehudi, the seal of the Jew, and this is Ploni ben Ploni, which means it could be Moshe's son of Moshe, for example. By the way, if you look back at Kalman's wall again, you'll see the German source dealing with this subject of Jewish hats here. A German source to deal with the Jewish Road War, and this source is, I'll read it to you in translation to English. The Jews shall wear hats which are pointed. This way they can distinguish, they can be distinguished from the Christians. So one can recognize them as Jews. So this is another source, and you can see it, of course, here on the seal. So now returning to the last and third seal, we can see another popular here, another popular Jewish symbol, a crescent moon and star. And here the polygonal inscription implies a communal context. In fact, this design of this seal is based on a seal belonging to the Jewish community of the city of Regensburg. The use of stars is also related to Arik Weiss installation here. Engage with the nexus of words, letters, numbers, and meanings using a Jewish practice known in Hebrew as gematria. Weiss based his installation on an historical source written by Yitzhak, son of Yitzhak, who lived in France, in the city of Chignon around 1250. This is his source here and here, and this is also part of this source, the stars here. So Yitzhak ben Yitzhak was using gematria almost 800 years ago as a tool to address all aspects of Jewish life, including death, livelihood, travel, and love. One of the formulas in Yitzhak's own miniature manuscript predicted marital success by analyzing the first names of the couple. This formula combines gematria, arithmetics, and astrology. You'll have to believe me, but the calculation involves a four-step process. First of all, you have to calculate the numerical value of the letters of the first name of the men and the women. And then you have to add 16, and then you have to divide it by 9 until left with a remainder between 1 to 9. Then you have to take the number that you get, the remainder, and match it to the appropriate planet, and thus extracting the meaning, namely the marital fate of the couple. Let me now return again to Arik Weiss installation and show it to you in more detail here. So you can see that Arik Weiss take Yitzhak ben Yitzhak calculation to a new level. For the purpose of the installation, Arik left aside the uses of specific names and instead entered the formula, the arithmetic formula, a pair of Hebrew words, his name, Shmo, and her name, Shma. This yields the principal answers to whether a relationship between any given man and any given woman will succeed. So you take Shmo and Shma, this is 346 and 345, and then you add to the sum of it, you add 16, and then you start to divide by 9. And in the end, you'll get a reminder. And in this case, where you don't use the name Rachel and Leah and Shmuel and Avram, and you use Shmo and Shma, you get a reminder of 5. So it's like a general perspective on marriage. And if you go to the formula, you figure out that 5 means Jupiter, Tzedek in Hebrew, and the marital fate will be both good and bad. Looking back to Kalman's long wall, you can see another visual interpretation of Ben Yitzhak formula here. A bow and an arrow, often used as a symbol for falling in love in the Middle Ages. As you can see, it is aimed, the arrow, it is aimed towards the stars, where any individual can find his or her good luck. That is in Hebrew, Mazal Tov. And of course, Mazal in Hebrew means Kochav. You can see here, if you go in, you'll see that one of the stars, so you have Noga, and this is Tzedek, and this is Shabtai, and you have Ma'adim, and you have Kochav, which means Kochav Chama, which means Mercury. So for Jews in the Middle Ages, luck was in the stars. Sorry, let's go towards here. Both textual and visual sources indicate that Mazal Tov rings have been used in multiple purposes. First, as betrothal kiddushin ring, the ring would have been placed on the bridegroom by the bridegroom on the bride's index finger, symbolizing the bride's becoming sanctified to the groom. Mazal Tov ring could also have served as holders to the marriage contract, to the ketubah, and handed together by the bridegroom to his bride. As ketubah attachments, this ring would have played a visual and aesthetic role, drawing the attention of the participants and guests to the ritual, and thus highlights the groom's right and responsibilities in relation to his bride. And here you can see, I'll zoom in a bit to this installation. And also, I'll show you this. In this picture, taken from Pizarro Sidur, produced in the city of Pizarro in Italy in the 15th century, you'll find one and probably the only evidence for this custom. The two Mazal Tov rings on display specific. So you if you zoom into this this illustration, you see that it's like a comics. So you have part 1 where the groom, the groom is handing the ketubah with a metal ring here, and then this is part 2, where the bride is already holding the ketubah with this ring. And you can actually see that the ring type that was developed in Ashkenazi in the 14th century really recalled this piece in the ketubah. And this is what we try to do in this exhibition, is to create an installation that will tell the story of this illustration. So the 2 Mazel Tov in the display were specifically made for the exhibition. They are not exact replicas, but rather are based on number of medieval rings that share similar characteristics. One ring, this one, is an hexagonal structure with a high dome. The roof is inscribed with 6 Hebrew letters. You can see it here. And you can also see it here. Here you have inscriptions on the roof. And you will not be surprised to hear that the letters of this 6 of this hexagonal roof is Mem Zayin Lamed Tet Vav Bet, which comprises of the blessing Mazal Tov. At the top of the second ring, here, so the second is a rectangular structure that holds a gable roof, and as you can see, inscribed of each of the sloping roof panels are 2 words. On one side you'll find Mazal, and on the second one you'll find Tov. Both rings were modeled using solid modeling computer-aided design, and then enlarged and were significantly enlarged and printed in 3D printer. So we are almost at the end of the virtual tour, and I would like to finish our tour near an installation made by Adi Weitzman. And this installation is based on a source dealing with hidden treasures, and we actually hid this source. It's like a miniature source that, in contrast to this large one, this is really we really try to hide it on the wall. Anyway, this source is dealing with hidden treasures. And as you may all probably know, before the invention of modern safes and banks, valuables were often hidden by their owners. This concealing was primarily intended to protect the belongings from theft and looting, but also occurred as a result of family disputes and in order to avoid tax payment. Violent outbursts and tension with Christian neighbors were additional reasons for Jews to hide their valuables. Whatever the reason for property hiding, the abandonment of these valuables implies a situation in which the owner was prevented from returning to the hiding place in order to retrieve the property. Weitzman concealed a treasure inside one of the gallery walls, and you can see it here. She left a narrow crack from which a warm, bright light emanates out. Rather than being constructed of gold, silver, or precious stones, Weitzman's treasure is a conceptual one, a treasure that conveys the value of historical knowledge. You can see that also people from outside of the gallery can also enjoy this piece. Weitzman installation brings us back to the moving force behind this exhibition. The Beyond the Elite research group, the Beyond the Elite research group. As a group and as individuals, we all set out to research for historical treasures. Our discoveries are cultural assets of knowledge, precious precious pieces of as yet incomplete puzzle of Jewish life of long bygone time. It is with profound pleasure that we have the opportunity to display these historical treasures before you today. Now, before I'll answer any questions regarding the exhibition, I wish to invite Professor Elisheva Baumgarten, our team leader, to tell you a bit more about the Beyond the Elite project and also about the exhibition. Thank you very much.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
I think she froze. Elisheva? Elisheva, you want to try to reconnect perhaps, or go out of Zoom and come back in? Ido, do you have her number? Can you write her or a text or something? I don't know if she knows she's frozen. Thank you.
Yeah, I can also do that.
Here she is. Hi.
Daniela?
Ken,
Yeah, you're with
I just
now you're
having Wi-Fi
muted.
problems.
Okay, now
It's okay
What's
now.
that?
yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I apologize. So I might not be able to show you things on my computer I had hoped to show you, but I will do the talking so you can hear me say a little bit about the research group. And what I'd like to say, first of all, is thank you for inviting us to present the virtual exhibit at this conference today. And also to congratulate the organizer of the conference for such a rich conference with so many interesting papers on material culture. And what I want to do in the very few moments I'm going to take up of your time is what I want to do, one second. What I want to do in the very few minutes of the time I have here with you now is I want to try to tell you a little bit about the group. And over the past few years, the group has been going on for the past 5 years. One of the things I often say is the group is the joy of my academic life. We are myself and a coordinator. We have 5 or 6 postdocs over the years, 7 doctoral candidates. Ido counts twice because he was both a doctoral student who finished his doctorate in the group, and then he became a postdoc. And we have 6 people who finished their MAs. We've had over 10 students from all over the world who've come to visit us for periods of time, some of whom then became members of the group. And finally, we've had, I think I counted this afternoon for you, 45 seminars, 10 conferences. And I tried to put things into numbers today and to figure out what we've done together. And I can recite the numbers. You know, we've published 3 monographs. We have 3 that are forthcoming. We have 5 collections of journal fascicles with many, many articles. We have a source book that's coming out in English. But what we're doing today is really talking about this exhibit. So I'll say that this is really the most special thing we've done together as a group over these 5 years together. And when I first approached Ido with the idea of having an exhibit, Ido was enthusiastic right away. And this is my opportunity to thank Ido for his vision. But since we're a group that's used to working together, we usually sit together 2 days a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. Come Corona or no Corona, we're together, whether online or in our physical premises. The group was aghast. How can we take the sources we work on all the time, choose one source, which is what we did at the beginning of this project, write a short article of 500 words about that source, and then meet with an artist who knows nothing about the medieval world and try to turn this source into art. And that's really what was behind the idea of this exhibit, try to help people outside of the academic world, outside of our very little medieval world. And of course, when you have a group like ours, we developed very quickly an inner world of our own. So we all know how to complete each other's sentences, argue with each other about different things. How do you create an exhibit that can talk to people? And I think presenting this exhibit to you at a conference on ritual objects is really important because our project had 4 main axes we've been working along. One of them is rituals. A lot of the work I did before this project had to do with rituals, with life cycle rituals, with annual rituals. The second was space. In order to understand the space of medieval Europe, a lot of our work
Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
1 second. I hope you can hear me now. Okay, this is not working, the logistics of this. So one of the things we did during our first period together was we really tried to explore space. We even went to Europe together to explore space, and we produced a whole volume about it. The third axis of our project, I'm sorry. The third axis of our project, this is not working. The third axis of our project was objects, and we always wrote about objects we couldn't see, because we often wrote about objects we couldn't see, because there are very few objects from the medieval period that survived. And those examples, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Yeah, those examples of the rings are one such object that did survive, but many of the objects did not survive. So often we write about objects we read about in texts, but we don't see them. And all of a sudden, seeing how these objects became modern objects really changed our way of reading our sources and trying to imagine them and taking in their space and taking in their dimensions and taking in their textures. And it was a really interesting process for us to discuss these things. The fourth axis of our project is people. And the exhibit also allowed us to think about these people in new ways. So all in all, what happened over the past 2 years is each person wrote this short article of 500 words. We created a catalog, and I will try to share now and hope that this works. So we created a catalog, which I hope you can see now. This is our catalog. The catalog looks a little bit like what you've been seeing in the virtual space. And then each person wrote their short article, like you can see over here. And then we met with the artists and talked to the artists. And the artists came back to us with their artwork. And I think during the summer months last year, every other week I had a crisis in the group. Somebody was unhappy with what the artist was doing with their ideas. And they were either calling me or calling Ido and getting upset. And what really happened when we ended up putting up the exhibit and producing this space is that everybody felt great. First of all, because it was beautiful. And second of all, because the conversations with the artists had really allowed them to rewrite their research in new ways and think about their research in new ways. So from that point of view, it was really a very productive experience for us as a group. There were other aspects of this, which because of COVID, for example, we decided that we had to have a virtual exhibit. We all just had a virtual tour with Ido now, and we saw that it's sometimes very nice to have a virtual tour, and sometimes it's very confusing to see all those dots pop up in front of you and figure out what to do with them. We produced the exhibit in 3 languages, Hebrew, Arabic, and English. For many of you on the screen who read Arabic, maybe this would have been much easier, but I do not read Arabic. So to try to make sure that the text is correct in a language I don't read was a very difficult experience. And we ended up hiring expert after expert to help us through the process to make sure that the text said exactly what they were supposed to say. So that was also a very interesting part of this. And now trying to figure out how to make sure that people can come and access the exhibit and understand what it's about is another stage of this process. So I'd say that we were very fortunate because our first guests at the exhibit were the Mount Scopus kindergarten. And they came in as we were putting up the exhibit. They sat down around the fountain that you saw now, and they sat there for close to half an hour. And they loved it. They loved the sound of the water. They loved all the people coming in and out, and we could have a conversation with them. What are those sounds? What does it mean? What kind of life are you living when you hear these sounds? Who do you see around this fountain? And this was in the very early days of putting up the exhibit. And that's when I think Ido knew all along, but that's when I knew everything would be okay if we attracted the children in this way. And since then, we've been working more and more on how to make the exhibit accessible to different people outside the academy and inside the academy. And we really want every person on the campus who walks by the exhibit to walk into the exhibit and have a look at it. Now, I've just spoken a little bit about the exhibit through the lens of our group. We have 1 more year as a group. And maybe the last thing I want to say is something about the power on the one hand of numbers and at the same time of people thinking together. And I think conferences like this are also a very good example of this. The fact that we sit together and we talk about our work really enables us to work in new ways. Each of us has different expertise and we are able to help each other with our expertise. We've developed a number of systems of working within the group. For example, we have a buddy system, that's what we call it. Every article anyone writes, any piece anyone writes, they always have a buddy who's assigned to them. And the buddy reads the first drafts, and then we pass it through other buddies. So we kind of alternate buddies as we go around. It makes the pieces we write much better. Often when we go to conferences, we practice with the group before we go to the conference. So that means that every paper has 2 or 3 or 4 run-throughs, because it's one run-through with the group, and then other people in the group will listen to private run-throughs. We've spent the last year of COVID learning languages together. So we've done medieval Latin together twice a week. We have a French group, we have a German group, we have a manuscript group. So we have all kinds of groups that kind of, right now we have a Python group going on inside of our group. That's the latest aspect of our work together for people who are doing digital humanities. So it's really helped people decide to learn something new, find a partner to learn it with, and go ahead and learn it. And of course, if you have a partner who says to you, it's Tuesday morning, it's time for Latin, why aren't you at Latin? You come to Latin more frequently. So it's really helped all of us, I think, become better scholars. Looking ahead, our last project, which is to write a final kind of book for the project, we're going to try to write something together, in which we start each with our own individual pieces, but we pass it amongst each other until we have a book that will be authored by all of us. And there won't be any one author for it. So I think the exhibit is a point in the journey the group is going on together, but it really is not the end point. And it will be very, very interesting for me to see my students who've been part of the group grow and produce their own work over the next years, because above all, I think none of what we've done together could have been done without them. In the case of this exhibit, it was Bill who led the way. In other projects, it's other people who lead the way, but that really is what our project has been about. Of course, thinking about group projects in the humanities is always a complicated enterprise. And I'm happy to talk about that now more in the discussion if anybody does. We all still write our own research for the most part. We have a few joint articles, but everybody writes their own research. That means that I do a lot of supervising as the person who's trying to run this group, but I don't do it alone because we all read each other's work all the time. And in the end, we're producing in a lot of different directions and people are going in a lot of new directions, which I think is what makes it very exciting. It's not at all like running a lab in which everyone has one experiment or 2 experiments that they're all working on. It's more like having 10 or 12 experiments going on at the same time, or 10 or 12 projects going on at the same time, in which each person is leading the way. I think the last point I want to make is to say that one of the things we've learned on Zoom is that there are a lot of things we can do on Zoom. But when you meet your class after you've taught them on Zoom for a semester, and the students start walking into your office, you realize that the only people who look like they are supposed to look are those you knew before the Zoom. The people you met only on Zoom look very different when they walk into your office. They're taller, they're more beautiful, they have lighter hair, they have darker skin, whatever it might be. There's always some surprise when you meet them in person after you know them in Zoom, unless it's somebody like Daniela, who's been my friend for probably 25 years. So when I see her on Zoom, she looks like Daniela because Daniela and I have been friends for so many years. So I would say the same thing about this exhibit. Ido, I think, did a fabulous job of trying to show you the gallery on Zoom through the virtual exhibit. And I welcome all of you to come into our website next week, to go to our website next week when the virtual exhibit is online, and you can all take your time and go through the exhibit. But I really want to say that we would love to see you all at Mount Scopus. And one of the advantages of having a group with 10 people is that almost any time you come to Mount Scopus, if you let me know in advance, I'll get you a guide. In other words, I'll have someone who can come with you to the exhibit and show you around, because when there are 10 of us around, usually somebody has a few spare moments to pop over to the gallery and to show you around. The exhibit will be open from next Wednesday until September 2022. The original plan for the exhibit was that it would come up this spring so that it would be here for the World Congress of Jewish Studies that was supposed to take place this coming summer. Of course, because of COVID-19, the World Congress of Jewish Studies is not taking place this summer, it's taking place next summer, which is why the exhibit will be up for 1.25 years, so that next summer when 2,000 Jewish studies scholars come to Jerusalem, one of the features we can offer them at the conference is a tour of our exhibit in which they can see how we tried to let modern artists be creative with the work we do. And I think to some extent, we're all creative with the sources we read in different ways, even if we stay within the boundaries of our genre. And I think this was really an exciting opportunity to let people who aren't within the bounds of our métier figure out what they can do with the things we're working on. And the comment that repeated itself most in conversations with the artists was, I never knew the Middle Ages were so similar to our period, which was a really funny comment because of course they were taking what we do and trying to make it relate to our period. So they were actually doing that themselves, but it was really nice to see how much resonance they found within the medieval period to the lives they're living today and to the work they were doing. So thank you for listening to us. Thank you, Ido, for guiding us. And thank you to Daniela and Yoni for inviting us. And I think right now, if there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
I would like to ask if it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for the amazing virtual tour. It was fantastic. I wonder about the throne that you said, if there any difference between the king and the queen throne, or it's the same design. And the second question is about the ring which hold the ketubah. One is Mazal and the second is Tov. Which goes to whom? The woman gets the Tov or the Mazal?
Okay.
I think she gets it all.
So let me share it again, and we'll go into the exhibition and I'll answer it. So regarding the crowns, we have I would guess hundreds of different crowns for this period, and I think that from my experience, you have in the manuscript we have a big difference between the feminine one and the masculine one, but in real life you'll find that women sometimes wear really elaborate ones and sometimes really modest ones. So it really depends on the amount of money that you have in not in your bank, but in your assets. So and you also have a lot of symbols that tells the story about what is the function of the crown. So let's say some crowns also contain small eagles that holds wedding rings, small, really miniature wedding rings, and we think that they were used mainly for women. So this is one answer, and the other one, I think I didn't explain myself well enough. So if I look closer on this ring, you'll see that one side of the rope is saying Mazal, but the other one will say Tov.
Ah, the same ring.
Yeah, sorry. So let's go here. So the other side says Tov, and if we will look at the other ring, you'll see that each of the part of the six faced roof is inscribed with a different letter. And regarding the use of wedding rings in general, I would say that men wore rings not less than women in the Middle Ages. That's one thing that I can say. But regarding Judaism and marriage and the Jewish wedding, you'll definitely find only women wearing wedding rings, kiddushin rings. So I would guess that these two rings were used either as betrothal rings for women to wear, or as ketubah holders like this, and then I'm not so sure that they were in use on the finger by women or by men. So this is the two possibilities that I found.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's a question here about if ketubah rings were a high status level sign too, like I guess high ranking or like social status.
Maybe I'll take that question.
Yeah.
I think that Ido's work, and Ido will not praise himself, so I'll say that Ido's doctoral work was really about these rings. And one of the things he suggested it based on both the size of the ring that you can see here, which you can see it here, of course, in an artistic, but if you looked at a real ring like that, it's quite big. And also based on illuminations that we have on ketubot, that maybe they were also used just to hold the ketubah. Now, one of the interesting things is, if you take us back to the treasure for a second, in treasures such like that, and the treasures that were found, the shots that were found all over Germany that were usually treasures hidden by Jews around persecutions, we found a number of Mazal Tov rings, both in Colmar and in Erfurt and elsewhere. And one of the things people assume is that perhaps, or that I've learned from Ido actually, is that perhaps each community had a Mazal Tov ring like this. And if the community had a Mazal Tov ring like this, it could be used at every wedding by the different people during the ceremony. In that case, it would not be a status symbol, it would just be a communal treasure, kind of like a seal, like we saw before, is a status symbol. If you have a seal, you're from a high status family, or you're a high status merchant, but a community could also have a seal. And then it wouldn't have to be a high status anything, it would just be a communal symbol. So I think you could see the similar thing between those two parts of our exhibit. I actually hadn't thought how they work together before. So this is a nice question to think about, both of them working together. And these kinds of, and the last thing I want to say is that the museum in Erfurt, the Jewish Museum in Erfurt, which is where one of these rings was found, actually in their gift shop, if you want, you can order your own Mazal Tov ring. So they've tried to make it into something very modern and very commercial, that if you come there, you can order your own Mazal Tov ring. I'm not telling you this because I want to send you to Erfurt to buy Mazal Tov rings for your beloveds. I'm actually telling you this because next Monday, our exhibit is having a very exciting moment, because one of the things we really had hoped to happen with this exhibit is that it would not only be virtual, but that other places in the world would be interested in it. And one of the most brilliant things in the planning of it is that Ido planned it so that we wouldn't have to pay any insurance for it, which you can understand why that was brilliant from the planning point of view, but also it can be reproduced any place. These 3D printings can be reprinted any place. The stickers on the wall can be reprinted any place. They might undergo some kind of organization based on the space things are in, but they can be reprinted any place. And Erfurt would like to bring this exhibit to Erfurt next year. So they're already having a conversation with us next week, because they've been in on the secrets of the planning a little bit, to ask how they can bring this exhibit here. So for us, that's really, really exciting that the work we're doing will not just stay online or at Mount Scopus, but also can go elsewhere. And another museum in Germany that we've been in touch with over the years, which is the Kel Museum, which is where Mikwa, where they have a Jewish daily life theme, because they found the quarters, the Jewish quarters of Cologne, and they've investigated them. And those of you from Ben Gurion know this well, because Ephraim Shalom Steiner is working on Cologne now. They've come to Jerusalem to consult with us about their museum over the years, because they see us as the daily life group. And hopefully this exhibit will make it to their museum as well eventually. So that, I think, is another thing that artwork can do in a way that our scholarship doesn't always do to the wider public. And we're really very excited about that.
Any further questions, comments?
So let me for a minute take you on a tour outside of the gallery, because I didn't do it yet. So as I mentioned before, the gallery is made of glass walls. So even now, when it's locked for public, you can actually see the exhibition. And as Eliseva said, we gave access to all three languages spoken in Jerusalem. So we have a text in Hebrew, and we also have text in Arabic and English. And it's not something, I think it's very special, and I do hope that it will start a tradition of giving access also to Arabic students to content, to artistic content and historical content in Mount Scopus. You can see it here. Any other questions? Thoughts?
So I think we're good. This was fabulous. It's fascinating, and I really hope we get to see it in person very soon. On Scopus. I haven't been there in like a year or something, but I'm familiar with the space very well. It's interesting how to watch that space suddenly being transformed to something very different. Looks amazing. Thank you very much, Ido and Professor Baumgarten.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting us.
Our
It was
pleasure.
a pleasure for us also.
So I think we have our final panel. We're almost done.
Thanks very much.
We
It was really a beautiful tour, and it's such a sophisticated exhibition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So basically, through the link, anyone can access the exhibition, right? Once
Yes.
it's published.
And the
anyone
catalog.
teaching-
The catalog is also
That's
downloadable and it's a PDF. Anybody can download it. It has an ISBN. It's a recognized publication. So it's really a true publication from that point of view.
Yeah, so it's an amazing teaching tool too.
Yeah.
So next year I plan
Now
to
that we
take
turn it. Yeah.
I plan to take my first year students next year to give each of them one of the sources in the exhibit without telling them it's a source in the exhibit, to have them write a paper about it, and then to take them to the exhibit to see what was done there. Maybe some of them will figure it out along the way that this is from the exhibit, but I hope not. I actually suspect not. And my plan is really to give each student one of the sources that somebody worked on and then to see what happens with them.
That's like a lesson for life, you know. Nice one. Amazing. Thank you. So we're reconvening at 7 o'clock for our final kind of summary panel. We're gonna have a talk with Professor Yoshua Frankel, and then kind of concluding remarks by me and Daniela, and questions, comments, suggestions. So please, if everyone can join us, we will love it. And you can just bring your cup of wine or something, or a glass of whatever. See you soon.
Thanks very much.